So you're in the market for Shokz OpenFits, but there are 4 different models and the OpenFit 2 Plus is the newest. Should you get the more expensive ones or just buy the cheapest? We think you should buy the cheapest, but let us explain.
Namaste, we're DHRME, Den Haag's real music enthusiasts.
Yeah, neither of us are from Den Haag.
Nee. We'll compare these to a bunch of non-Shokz products as well at the end. But why open-ear hook-style buds in the first place? There are 3 reasons, 2 pros and 1 con. The pros are awareness of your surroundings. Your ears are no longer blocked with earbuds inside them. Second is comfort, because your ears are no longer blocked with earbuds inside them. But there are cons. You cannot get good sound quality. Well, not as good as in-ears anyway with these products, although they are getting pretty good. All right, let's dive into these 4.
All right, so as we said, 4 different models here, but let's look at the cheapest. So the cheapest on the table right now is the Shokz OpenFit Air, and that one retails for 109 euros or $120. But don't be fooled, maybe the cheapest, and we alluded to it in the intro, but we'll get to that. Then we've got the Shokz OpenFit. That one retails for 139 euros or $160. Not cheap, we're getting into the expensive range now.
Yeah.
And then those 2 guys are basically the first generation. Those have been around for a little while. And recently, in the past year or so, these second generation models have come out, the OpenFit 2, which is 189 euros or $180. And then finally, the latest is the OpenFit 2 Plus at 199 euros. There's no dollar price yet, and they're not available in the US yet. Will be later this year, hopefully.
Yeah.
And we would guess that they would be retailing at around $190.
All right, all these beautiful earbuds in a row.
Yep.
All right, now let's maybe explore the difference between the Gen 1 products. So we keep these aside for a second.
Yep.
And the Gen 1 OpenFit Air
Yep.
and the OpenFit. Let's go through quickly the differences. For me, the main differences for these 2 products is one, the looks. Both of the buds look quite different.
Yep.
So this one, the OpenFit Air, has this kind of opening in the back, and this one is a more solid look. This is the OpenFit. Other than that, the texture of the case is quite different.
Yeah.
The OpenFit Air is more like, it has a soft texture to it, which feels nice, but ends up kind of becoming smudged and scratched.
Yeah.
Whereas the OpenFit case we have is just about as used. It doesn't feel smudged or scratched at all.
So really a bunch of things are the same here. You're getting multi-point on both. You're getting touch controls on both with double tap and long press. You're getting an app on both. You can customize those controls. You have EQ presets.
On both. We'll talk about sound later.
We'll talk about it later. That's kind of it. The biggest difference here really is going to be indeed the design, like you said, with that open slot in that piece that goes behind your ear.
Yeah.
But also the battery life. So you get 6 hours on the Air and you get 7 hours on the OpenFit.
Yeah.
Not a huge difference. We tested those numbers. We'll put up the tested battery life numbers that we got up here.
Yeah.
And as you can see, on the OpenFit we got a little bit less, and the OpenFit Air we got more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are going to talk about sound, microphone, all that performance at the end, so we can compare all 4. But that's the differences between these 2 for the first generation. All right, you can put these aside, and when we come to the spanking new 2 and 2 Plus.
So now there's been a bigger jump from the Gen 1s, let's say, to the Gen 2. First off, there are button controls.
Yeah.
And we love button controls here.
Buttonophiles.
Yes.
We need a t-shirt.
We needed the t-shirt. Yeah, you're right.
And you know what? We went ahead and designed the Buttonophile t-shirt. It's available on shop.dhrme.nl. And a special announcement, all merch proceeds for the rest of the year are going to go towards charitable causes. Back to the video. Right.
So now we've got a button at the top of the piece that sits next to your ear, and they work well. They work well. You've got a single press, a double press, and a triple press. So that gives you a bunch of options like volume, play, pause, track control. And there's even touch still left on the buds. So you can long press that to call up your voice assistant, the one that's on board on your phone. So great. It gives you so many more controls, and they're all customizable. So the next one is also about buttons.
Yeah.
There's a button in the charging case.
Yeah, so if we just compare for a second, this is the OpenFit Air from the first generation. The OpenFit has it as well. There's no button down here, but in the newer generations, you have this kind of button. And this button is super handy for pairing.
Yeah.
What you had to do with the previous generations was keep the buds in the case, hold both of them down.
Yes.
Then it went into pairing, which is not my favorite way.
Not very intuitive. Now with the button in the case, so much easier. Then the other difference is, like we said, on the Air and the OpenFit, you got 6 and 7 hours. They've bumped that up to a solid 11 hours of battery on the buds, advertised, and our tested numbers check out as well. So well done, Shokz. Not only that, so even though the case sizes don't seem to be much bigger than the older generation, they've bumped up the battery life as a total package. So as a total package on the Gen 1, you had 28 hours. On Gen 2, getting 48 hours, so 20 hours more. Yeah, solid. Wow. And, you know, you could kind of wager where that comes from is because the other upgrade is that there was 5.2 Bluetooth version on the older gen and 5.4 on the newer one. And IP rating.
IP rating, the newer generation is IP55, so a little bit better for a trip to the beach compared to the older generation, which was IP54. All right, so those were the big upgrades from Gen 1 to Gen 2.
Yep.
Now, what is the difference between the Gen 2s, which is the OpenFit 2, I think I have the right one, and the OpenFit 2 Plus, they look very similar.
That's right.
So one of these is the 2, one of these is the Plus. I think the number one difference, I think you can see all the differences on the box actually. So, hey, look at the lines at the bottom. Those are the differences. So yes, you get Dolby audio and you get wireless charging.
Yep.
Those are the two big differences. And I actually like Dolby audio with open ear products because like the distance from the ear is bigger, which means you really feel like there's more space. I definitely enjoyed these with Dolby audio on.
And the other one that's on the box, indeed, wireless charging. Look, the buds are not any heavier or something between these. They're exactly the same weight. The case is almost the same. It was just 3 grams heavier. And there were 2 other minor differences that we managed to catch, which were not on the box. One thing is that on the OpenFit 2 Plus, you can customize the single tap, which was not possible on the OpenFit 2. What can you customize it to? Nothing. As in, you can have it do nothing. So I guess it's for people who don't like a single press because while they're adjusting the bud or putting it on, they accidentally click it, which we generally don't experience. We experience that a lot with touch controls, but not with buttons. But hey, that's one of the things. And the other thing?
The big difference is inside the case. Okay, I said I couldn't make out a difference between these two. Tell me if you can now make out the difference between these two. Okay, I'll bring it closer. The name of the buds is embossed on the OpenFit 2, but not on the OpenFit 2 Plus.
Woohoo.
All right, so now we're going to actually do a performance comparison.
Yeah.
Kind of between all of them. And let's start with the microphone samples. Listen to the samples. We've done the tests. Here you go.
Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2. Pop, pop, popsicle. Test, test, testing. Pop, pop, popsicle. Test, test, testing. You heard them? Starting with quiet conditions, we've got to say that the OpenFit Air did relatively the worst. It had a brighter sound to them, and there was less bass in the voice. But the rest, in quiet and noisy conditions, did relatively better. And surprisingly, when we moved to the windy conditions, the OpenFit Air managed to handle the air a lot better. And you could actually hear me while I was speaking softly, whereas on the others, it was almost just cut out. It wasn't there. So that's microphone performance. Generally fine.
Yeah.
Except the air, most conditions was meh, except for wind. That's kind of the lowdown.
And if you're asking what is the difference between the new generations, the 2 Plus and the OpenFit, we saw almost no difference.
So. Yeah, exactly. For the Fuckman controls, You can answer hang up and you can change volume.
Directly from the buds, yeah.
Directly from the buds, but that is it. It's a shame because the new gen with that button gives you so many more controls. I hoped that they would have added mute to it, but fortunately not.
Maybe a software update.
Maybe.
They have the hardware, so.
Yeah.
That is the sound leaking out of your mouth.
Yeah.
But when you're listening to music, does the sound leak out of your ears? A lot of you ask about sound leakage, which is what people hear around you when you're listening to music. So we made some samples. Listen to them. All right. What do you guys think about the leakage? Let us know in the comments down below. We have some thoughts, but I'm curious to see if you guys have some thoughts as well. Let's move on to sound.
Yeah, let's do
Not
that.
leakage, but actual sound quality. Now, to start with, all of these, none of these is a bass monster. Like, that's just the nature of this kind of product. The sub bass is kind of missing, I think, in everything, but you're getting pretty decent mid bass in most of them, except this guy, the OpenFit Air. I thought this had the worst bass performance, like really, really low bass. Okay. And the higher notes like are more prominent and sharp, and just generally, it's fine for podcasts and stuff. I would not necessarily recommend it for any kind of music. Okay. Maybe very casual music when you're out and about. It does have EQ presets. It's the only one on this list that does not have custom EQ.
The Air.
The Air.
Okay.
So again, the Air is the worst of the lot for sound, worst for sound customization. Okay. And the OpenFit is generally much better than the Air, especially in the bass. There is definitely mid bass. Good to hear. Custom EQ. OpenFit 2 Plus. Again, same story, not much sub bass, decent amount of mid bass. I think it's getting very marginal between the OpenFit 1, the OpenFit 2, and the OpenFit 2 Plus. All are decent mid bass. I think the OpenFit 2 Plus is probably slightly more refined in some things, but it's just like you're picking nits at this point. None of these is going to blow your mind for sound. Okay. And the bass boost mode is a bit of a head fake because these can't do bass. So what they do is they boost the bass a little bit and scoop out the mids. So you think, your brain thinks there's more bass. It's just an illusion of bass, but it's fine. That's what they can do with the limited hardware they have. On the OpenFit 2 Plus, I really think the Dolby mode really sets it apart. It really gives you that spacious sound, like I said. And it's ever so slightly better tuned than the OpenFit 2 on the higher notes. But the difference is so small. I'm like, if you're saying like this was a 5 on 10 and the Shokz OpenFit was 7 on 10, you're talking about 7.5 and 7.7 or 7.8, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not like a meaningful difference, I think.
And the places where you would be using these, right? You're usually going to be outdoors probably.
Yeah.
That's at least the target demographic. There's so much ambient noise competing with your music.
Correct.
This isn't for...
Even indoors, it's not going to... Yeah, don't... If you're an audiophile with your glass of whiskey, you know, having and enjoying your audio in the evening, this is not necessarily the product, but they're fine for what they are.
Yeah.
Now, enough blah blah. We've talked about everything. Between these four, it's time to make a choice, man. Okay, between these four to begin with.
Yeah, so you're restricting me to Shokz hook style buds only. If that's the case, see, look, So the battery life of 11 hours is a big step up from the battery life of 6-7 hours here, right? I respect that, but I'm not working out with these buds for that long. And that's usually the use case for these buds is either I'm going out for a walk, a run, a cycle, something like that, and I'm wearing these buds. I'm not nitpicking on sound, right? I'm not making a ton of calls. Maybe in a pinch, I might pick up a call. And for me, I'm thinking I'll save my money and I'll go with the OpenFit Air.
Yeah.
That's my pick. What about yours?
Well, if you're forcing me to choose between these four, I think it has to be for me the OpenFit 2 Plus because the difference between the 2 and the 2 Plus is $10.
That's true.
So I think maybe I would never consider the 2.
Yeah.
It depends on what the prices are, right, in your location. So check out the links in the description. But given the current difference, I would definitely choose the 2 Plus simply because I want buttons.
Yeah.
I hate touch controls. So I would pick this as well if it had buttons.
Yeah.
But it does not.
I'll give you that for sure. The buttons are a big upgrade.
And the wireless charging, fine. It's there. It's like a nice to have.
Yeah.
The sound is fine. Dolby is fine. But yeah, I think I would pick these. But these four are not the only products on the market. And we've done a ton of other videos. So we're going to run through some alternatives.
Yeah, let's do that. So a couple that we've picked out for today. So 3 of them actually are extremely good for value for money. Number one at $80 is the Basis Eli Sport 1. Excellent. That flew under our radar for a really long time before it made it onto the channel. So check that video out. Then we've got Earfun, maybe a brand that not a lot of you have heard of, but they make some great products too. For example, their Open Jump at $80. And their design of the buds are very much inspired from Shokz. So it's got that same hook style bud or thin hook style design. That's one. And a third one is from Tozo, the Open Buds. It's got a bit of a different design element with some adjustability.
Yeah, it's got the two axes adjustability, which may or may not have been done by JBL before them. But
yeah. And then
you get the all-rounder, which is the Soundcore AeroFit 2, which we really liked.
Yep.
It does not have buttons, but it's $130 and it has everything. It has wireless charging, touch control, adjustability, good fit, many colors, So yeah, that's a very good all-rounder.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why Rowan did pick the OpenFit 2 Plus was buttons, but they're not the only ones with buttons. You've also got one from One Audio, the OpenRock X. Excellent pair, very funky case.
Yeah.
They sound great. They are a bit steep at $170, but again, that's more in the range of these second-gen buds over here.
Yeah, sound really good.
Yeah.
Also, one of the best bass and open-ear products.
Yeah.
And there's another one, the Clear Arc 3 for sound. And I think they are one of the nicest sounding open-ear buds. They also have a funky case, a JBL style smart case.
Yeah.
Not quite as smart, but still it has like UV cleaning, disinfecting, whatever.
Yeah.
It has a bunch of things. We made a short on it, so you can check that down below. But $220. So
yeah,
I am very, very skeptical of spending a lot of money on these kind of products. So if you personally ask me among these, I would choose a lower price product.
Yeah. What would you pick out of all the alternatives that we just
hard.
mentioned?
I really like to strike a balance of not going too cheap.
Yeah.
I think the Soundcore hits a sweet spot for me. It's not like super cheap. So if I really was on a tight budget, I want a beater pair Tozo or, Basis. I go as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm thinking what I would pick. I think I like the Earfun Open Jump because the case is very pocketable, very similar to these guys here.
Yeah.
Because the basis is big.
Correct.
The Soundcore is also kind of on the bigger side. So yeah, I think I'd go with that. Really comfortable as well. So yeah.
Shokz sent out all these products to us, so thanks to them. But this video is in no way sponsored. We were sponsored by Shokz last year, but that's behind us. So this is an independent review. Thanks to Shokz again, but thanks to all
our viewers, likers, and subscribers. But a special thanks to these paid, tested members and patrons.
And an extra special thanks to our Fakman tier supporters, the 4 great people, Jay, Rats Panda, Paula, Rachel. All of you are so amazing.
Amazing. Thank you. And you've been shocked about these open earbuds.
And we've been DHRME.
Doi.